there. All right. Let's bring our Hall of Fame voter in, our friend Jason Cole. Get his comments here. Hey, Jason, do you think the Cowboys head to this Christmas Eve game with the Eagles too much? I said this about Micah Parsons' comments about Hurts. I mean, if I'm in that locker room right now, I'm like, Micah, what's the point of this? There's no you still got the Jags this weekend here. Then you got that Christmas Eve game. Just your overall sense in the shade that Micah Parsons is throwing on Hurts and the Eagles. He thinks Jalen Hurts, Jason, is the caboose to this 12-1 team. How do you look at those comments?
How about get past the next game? Because if you think he's the caboose, wait till Trevor Lawrence runs you over. Because you almost lost to Houston last week, pal. This is forever what happens to Dallas every time they start to become good is they get ahead of themselves. They start to think, we should be printing Super Bowl tickets already. Do we have the right hotel for Arizona? Like how many tickets do I need for my friends and my family for the game? For the big Super Bowl game. Where's Jerry what kind of party are we gonna have after the game when we're hoisting? You haven't gotten to the playoffs yet. You haven't won a playoff game in forever. Focus on the next thing that's in front of you, not something else, right? Not Jalen Hurts, not, Christmas game, not anything else. Focus on the next objective ahead of you. This is forever the Dallas Cowboys problem under Jerry Jones, and Micah Parsons just exemplifies it.
Jason nailed it right on point here. And to expand on what you just brought up, doesn't this kind of stuff undermine the head coach? I mean, because I say that, Jason, I say that because of this. Coach? Who's the head coach? I say that because, look, Jerry, you're not doing that shit under Jimmy. You're just not. Jimmy's going to talk shit, but you're not, because you've got receipts that you have to go out there and fulfill, and Jimmy's going to go out and do that, but that's the head coach. And to me, he undermines everything when, like you said, you start getting in a good role, all of a sudden it starts unraveling, and that's why you've got 3 playoff wins in 27 years.
Exactly. Look, and this is why they haven't had a head coach since, well, I take that back. They had Parcells. Because he had power and he had pop and he negotiated that into his contract. But they haven't really had a definitive head coach since Jimmy, other than Parcells for a brief time, because Jerry's the one who runs the show. And Jerry gets guys thinking this way. And Jerry talks this way. And this is why, owners are important. They set the table as much as everybody else. I remember years ago, after the Dallas Mavericks lost in the NBA Finals to Miami, right? And then they came back a couple of years later and they finally won their only title that they've had. And one of the things that I think was Avery Johnson, I can't remember who was coaching at the time, but he said to Mark Cuban, when you start screaming at the refs and start complaining to the refs during the middle of the game, guess what happens? The players think it's okay to blame the refs and scream at the refs and come up with excuses. You, the owner, has to stop doing that, right? You, the owner, has to say, look, we're focused on this game, and that's it. The process of going through winning a title. Jerry's never done that. He's always thought ahead to, what's next. It was even this whole dalliance with Odell Beckham Jr. was about, we're looking ahead because we're ready to print Super Bowl tickets. And then they found out his knee wasn't very good. And it's like, okay, well, that fell apart. Now they got T.Y. Hilton, which I don't blame him for signing T.Y. Hilton. That's a veteran guy who can play. And I don't blame him for wanting to talk about Odell Beckham Jr., but don't chase him before like they were out in the middle of this whole chase routine with Odell until they saw his knee. And then the whole thing came apart.
Jason, I've had this debate with so many people about dual threat. And when dual threat, here's my example of dual threat. Lamar Jackson, K1 gets hurt. on Monday night, and he's out until next year. And Josh Allen could be in that same boat if they don't get him a running back soon. He's a dual threat type of guy too. Jalen Hurts. There's such a small ceiling on these guys. And when you go out and put $50 million on that and you put it on and someone go, well, Brady got hurt in the pocket. Yeah, but Brady's a pocket passer and that's not affecting his arm. But if you start taking a dynamic away from these dual threat guys, K1's not going to be the same. And if he can't run, he's not a $46 million. How do you put a value on these guys like Jalen Hurts? I think it's hard, man.
Well, yeah, because dual threat quarterbacks are great until there's no dual.
Right. That's exactly it.
Right. It's I always said it. Somebody once asked me, it was Jeff Chadilla. I remember this, when the year that Baltimore and San Francisco were in the Super Bowl, and everybody's talking about Kaepernick was the next great thing and this and that. And we're like, oh, do you think Kaepernick's going to be the next great quarterback? I go, as long as he can run, he's fine. If he can't run, and then it all falls apart. And this is the problem that Baltimore has, because Baltimore sees it with Lamar Jackson, why they don't want to pay him, and why they've resisted, and why they're better off almost saying, we'll franchise tag you and see how it plays out for 2 or 3 years. And then if you're still great, you're great. Now that's aside from measuring Lamar Jackson in terms of, is he a good enough thrower against defenses in playoff situations? Like, that's a different equation. Lamar Jackson can get you to the playoffs, and that's a very valuable thing. Kyler Murray, can you make you a functional offense that's exciting and interesting to watch, and maybe you can harness that into making it a playoff team. That's a great thing to have. But understand, it's only going to last as long as his legs are good, which is why you're better off in some respects overpaying on a quarterback for a shorter period of time like that. Like, sign them earlier in their contract than waiting to sign them in year 5 or 6. And you get them at a slightly discounted rate, and then look, by year 6 or 7, I may have to just jettison this guy and move on because his legs don't operate anymore.
That's a great point, Jason. In the offseason here, you set up Jalen Hurts for a three-year contract where you're paying him $35 million. You guarantee
you can pay him $45 if you need to pay him, but you only want to pay him on a deal that goes out for 3 years. It's the same theory as what the New York Mets just did with Justin Verlander, right? Justin Verlander, he's not going to play out a 5-year deal, so you don't give him a 5-year deal. But you paid him $43 million a year, which is the way high end for pitchers, right? You paid him that because you said, I'll get you for 2 years, and we'll see what happens at the end of 2 years. But I'm only in for 86 total. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. I'm not tied up for 5 or 6 or 7 years. Of course, now the player is going to sit there and say, I want to leverage it for more. But Jalen Hurts, after year 3, absolutely, you go to him and say, I will overpay you for a 3 or 4 year deal. But I don't want to wait until after year 5 when I have to pay you on a 5 to 7 year deal. And that's where you have to be careful with running quarterbacks, or you have to make sure that you're already transitioning that guy from being a running quarterback to being purely a pocket guy. And Seattle did that pretty effectively with Russell Wilson. Like, they brought his carries down over time. Now, they still moved him, bootlegs and rolls, and still used his legs in certain ways. But they said, we're not going to make you a runner anymore. And they got a lot more mileage out of Russell Wilson.
And they did, but they got a lot of less winning in the postseason because they had to pay the guy, and they couldn't pay for a running back like Lynch. And they had to start dismantling that old line, Jason, because when you pay that guy, your dual threat covers that stuff.
Trust me.
They didn't win after that when they started paying.
That's because they didn't find the right running back, and they didn't match up the skills and stuff.
That's right. Rashad Penny sucked. He wasn't reliable.
Right. Well, look, I'm not afraid to pay a quarterback on that whole thing. Look, Peyton, the Indianapolis Colts paid Peyton Manning a lot of money in the middle of his career. They were still able to put together championship caliber teams. Okay, with Peyton Manning, and they competed for titles multiple times. Okay, same thing when he got to Denver. You can pay a quarterback. You just got to pick. You got to pick the right guys around him. I mean, it requires good personnel people.
Couple last questions here for you. Where does Brady play next year?
Probably in Tampa, based on the conversations I've had with a couple people. I mean, moving to a new place is hard to do. It's hard.
Too, at 45, right? I mean,
well, it's just like getting to know guys, getting to, working on work ethic. Now, he did that in the first year in Tampa and ended up winning a title. It doesn't get easier the next place you go to. So I think overwhelmingly it's probably Tampa. But look, if you're San Francisco, you're rolling out the red carpet. You're saying, look, Tom, pretty much whatever you need short of calling plays. But Tom should look at Kyle Shanahan and go, that guy knows what he's doing. I can trust him. And they're going to put weapons around me. And they've got a great defense. So he should be definitely thinking about that. Aaron Rodgers will probably be thinking about San Francisco. That might be hard for Green Bay to do, but he should be thinking about that as well. Like, can I go there and finally get another title, and accomplish the things that I want to accomplish? So, look, San Francisco is going to be looking for a quarterback really badly because Garoppolo's done for them with the foot injury, and Trey Lance hasn't played in 3 years, so they don't have much to. They got to make a move.
How about to go with what you're saying for tonight's game? Is this going to tell you a lot about not only just the present about the 49ers, but the future too? Now, look, this kid Purdy, as you know, Jace, we've seen a lot of guys. We've seen a guy by the name of Steve Bono go in for Monte. Nice. I think he's good too. But is this going to tell you a little bit more about San Francisco's chances this year and their future?
Look, I think their chances, based on what I saw from Brock Purdy last Sunday, I think their chances of getting to the Super Bowl have not diminished a lot compared to what they were when they had Garoppolo. I thought, this kid can do pretty much what Garoppolo did. Not as experienced, not as big, all those kinds of things. The question is winning a Super Bowl. Now, can you win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy? Like, that's a one in a long shot. But I think the chance of getting there is about the same because what do you have up in front of you? Okay, Brady's with a damaged team. That's the guy who scares you. Green Bay, Rodgers not going anywhere in the.
I think we lost Jason here a little bit.
Knock each other off.
Oh, there we go.
So, yeah, I mean, look, Philly and Dallas are going to play in that second round probably. And if that means that you only got to go through one of those teams to get to the Super Bowl, and you'll take your chance. Like you're. I mean, if you're the San Francisco defense, are you afraid of Jalen Hurts? You're not afraid of him. No, you're not afraid of Dak Prescott. You got to account for him.
Absolutely. Jace, we got to roll. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Anytime, dude.
Catch you next week, my friend. Jason Cole there, our NFL Hall of Fame guy. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. Keep it here on the National